It's a little better. So Chase, are you on still?
Hey, Chris. Yeah, I'm on.
So should we still run through this if nobody shows up?
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Totally up to you guys on what you want to do. For this series, I think it makes sense to have the recording, but I also understand that it might make it a little bit awkward if there's no one in the room with you. So.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, if we got a couple more in there, we don't want to say, hey, you missed the last one, but we don't have it recorded or available.
Right. I'm looking at the emails right now because we just sent the We're Live email. Looks like no one out of the 7 folks that registered opened it, so I don't anticipate them hopping in. But there's nothing to say that you can't record this one, and then we have a more concerted effort for the next one, and then able to reference, this recording.
Okay.
All right.
Well, you just want you and me, Orlando?
Yep, let's go.
All right, cool.
Cool.
All right, thanks,
take
Chase.
it from the top. That way I can cut the recording. Yep. All right, bye.
All right, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for joining XenTegra and F5 today as we review the new offering from F5 that was recently brought to market really kind of towards the end of last year. And we're starting over here at XenTegra, really getting our hands on it, but it's the distributed cloud platform from F5. And in this session today, we're going to kind of focus on the security aspect of it to kind of kick off this series of 4 webinars that we're hosting as we kind of step through the journey to learn ourselves and share with our customers and partners all the benefits that you can reap from going down the path of the distributed cloud platform with F5. So without further ado, we'll step through some of the slides here. We'll have a little demo and then kind of wrap things up with a couple more slides here just as a recap before we depart for the day. Okay, so our agenda is to meet the panelists here. We'll talk a little bit about XenTegra. Then we'll dive into the distributed cloud platform, and then we'll open it up for any Q&A that comes after that. So I'm Chris Dorn. If we haven't met before, thanks and welcome again. Run the network practice over here at XenTegra. I had a lot of years as a consultant with application delivery through load balancers, web application firewalls, that whole ecosystem. So it's one of my sweet spots where I really enjoy talking, demoing, helping customers. And one of my newer friends here, Orlando Santiago, has joined us today for the webinar. And I think we met in person last fall when I took a trip up to Chicago to learn a little bit about this distributed cloud and see what it's all about. But ever since then, our relationship's been growing, and I'm learning a lot from them. So welcome, Orlando. Thanks for being here today.
Yeah, thank you, Orlando Santiago. I'm one of the senior channel SCs here at F5. I'm based out of Houston, and it's great to work with Chris and some of your partner SCs here, trying to get your customers up to speed on these new technologies here at F5.
Great. Well, thanks for being here. So a little bit about XenTegra. Who is XenTegra? We're a value-added reseller 2.0. And what that means is that we've taken a lot of strides to really become that service-oriented kind of partner that you expect, but you haven't been able to get from a lot of the bigger shops. So while we look kind of big with everything you kind of see on the screen, you still get that personal touch that a lot of folks have become accustomed to with working with us. And with that, we tend to find that, we work together a little bit in one area or another. And then ultimately, as the years kind of go by, then you gain a trust with XenTegra, which then forms into a really tight partnership to help you and ourselves be successful together, because we're always better together. But XenTegra is based out of the East Coast, North Carolina area. and we've expanded up into Canada for nearshore. So that's run by Mo and Khan up there, and he's got a pretty awesome team that he's leading, and a slew of technical talent as well to the north of us. Over in India, now we have XenTegra Private Limited, which is helping with some of the MSP 24/7 monitoring and support that you would grow to expect from a managed services offering. XenTegra Gov, led by Harvey Green, is handling all the SLED and Fed, and we've gaining some traction there, which is resulting in some really good opportunities for not only the commercial side, as we've been accustomed to and kind of growing out of, but now that we can help some of the local and state and education departments at the local level through the government sector, it's been a pretty cool journey so far. XenTegra One handles everything 250 and below as far as user count. So we developed and partnered with another MSP to bring that to surface, and it's been really rocking and rolling this year. So a lot of folks that are like one-man no IT shops, for example, looking for that personal touch that XenTegra offers, our dedicated support team and organization through XenTegra One can really help you guys out in that regard. And then kind of rounding out like the list here is XenTegra's MSP. So we're Equinix data center hosted on East Coast and West Coast. We help service clients that have global footprints. Again, 24/7 response and access to folks. And we're seeing a lot of benefits in that, where folks want somebody that'll pick up the phone that's kind of in the same time zone as them to help resolve some of their issues. And that can play into anything from a DR as a service to fully managing and hosting your entire infrastructure. So a little bit more about XenTegra. Again, we're a value-added reseller. We help get you the best discounting that we can possibly get. So we go above and beyond working with our vendors and partners and distributors to really kind of get the price down for you to a point where, again, we look like one of the super big shops, and we can meet the price point to really help with that, so that you're saving money, you're getting the most out of your investment as possible. Strategic consulting services as well. So we have folks as local as can be that are experts in F5 to IGL. ServiceNow is a huge one right now that we're helping integrate into a lot of the different vendor solutions, including F5. And we've gone above and beyond with Nutanix and Citrix over the past couple of years for helping deliver VDI and some of those virtual desktops and applications that folks are accustomed to. From the managed services side, again, I kind of touched on that already, so I won't dive into it anymore. But rounding out this list here, we have a lot of complimentary assessments. So you can spend 2 to 4 hours on average with one of our senior pre-sales consultants to dive into any area of concern or future projects that you might have on the docket coming up, where you need some insight and a second set of eyes to kind of help scope or see where there might be some gaps that you need to fill inside of the solution sets. And that includes anything from wireless networking to your CRM with Salesforce, to the security plays, to hosting the infrastructure, maybe just checking the links that you have between your virtual or your SAN network up to the hosting compute network. So a lot of options there. That's pretty cool. So this is Andy Whiteside. So he created the company. He saw a lack of partnerships in the channel, where he worked at Citrix for a long time, as he was one of the solution engineers and actually won an award as SE of the year with them. And he walked out of the company and started his own company to try to do better for the customers. So what we saw kind of growing out of it was that a lot of folks were, selling a big SAN or a new network and sprinkling a little bit of extra virtualization on top of it, but those partners weren't really there to help bring it to fruition and make it successful. So Andy saw that there was a gap there, and he held his nose and dove on in, and 12 years later, here we are. We've had a pretty successful run at it and growing every day. One of our big marketing events to be sure to take advantage of is our Hawaii Adventure giveaway. So every year we have something kind of big that we give away, and this year it'll be a trip for two, all expenses paid to Hawaii. So that'll include airfare, board and lodging, food. It'll be a very nice trip for whoever wins that. But you only got a couple more weeks before the registration closes out. So if you're watching this today, great. You can take advantage of that. Go ahead and sign up. And if you haven't, well, you got till the beginning of, I think May 5th was the deadline on it. So hurry up and get in there and get your registrations done. We'll get you qualified with a quick phone call, and then you'll be in the raffle. And you got a pretty good chance. You got a lot better chance of winning this trip than you do the Powerball. So I'll leave it at that. Again, back on the value-added reseller, the complimentary assessments that we do. So again, sometimes it's just helping folks move from one platform to another, see some of the gotchas and gaps that you might experience during those kind of journeys. So we try to get in front of that with those complimentary assessments, as well as hosting educational workshops, because again, better together. And I've been here over 10 years now, and it's been really neat seeing our customers really become educated and experienced and comfortable with the solutions that they're working with, that they purchased and invested in. And anymore today, we find that a lot of these customers are pretty savvy at some of this stuff. So I'm having a lot cooler conversations, solving unique and modernized problems that we're presented with. And it's been a pretty neat to see that kind of bloom. Vendor focused or hands-on workshops that we do. So that might be in person, it might be virtual. We have vendor focused podcasts that we host as well. And we have heavily discounted conference passes. So we go above and beyond in that regard as well, where we invest heavily back into our customers to get them to the conferences that they can really dive into and get a lot out of. So we know the purse strings are tight at a lot of organizations anymore. Folks are looking to save money where they can, but we can't let that stop the momentum and the education factor that's presented to us now, because it's a pretty dangerous world out there on the internet. So everything that we can do to help educate and ready our customers, we take that upon ourselves to make that happen. Here's an example of one that a lot of you folks missed. Was back in February, F5 had their App World Conference out in San Jose. It was an awesome event. A good chunk of us from XenTegra went out there to check it out, and we really enjoyed ourselves. We learned a lot from the event, and this is we don't have the date for 2025 yet, of course. That's still in development, but this is an example of where we can help get you to those conferences to help enable you and become part of the community. So reach out to ourselves or any of your client executives that you have or previously worked with, and we'll see about what we can help you get to in the near future. So with that, Orlando is going to step us through a couple slides here and chat about some of the slides that F5 has created for this distributed cloud platform. So see if we can learn something about it. We're going to have a little bit of a test drive here, and then we'll kind of round out with a recap of mainly the main pillars that kind of encompass the distributed cloud platform here. So with that, I will click over to the first slide here and kind of step through some of it and hand it over to Orlando.
Yeah. All right. A lot of people know us for traditionally F5 as a load balancing company, right? We first started in the early 90s as a very interesting. We first started as a virtual reality company, right? And what a lot of people don't know is with F5, the name F5 comes from the famous movie Twister. And I think they're actually have a new remake coming out, right? From that movie.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Part 2's coming out, but when you look at F5, a lot of people tend to know us for load balancing, but we do more than that, right? Just like a lot of the vendors out there, right? Your Cisco's another one. They do more than what their core products. But one of the key things we've done in the last 3 years, we've acquired a couple companies, right, and extended our portfolio of products. Our core product, Big IP, right? We do load balancing, web application firewall. It's one of the key things that we do a lot these days, when it comes to web application security, right? Protecting your applications from different types of attacks, bot attacks out there, credentials, right? OWASP top 10, right? But we also, if you look at the microservices world, that's another area where people are, when you look at security, if you're working with Kubernetes, Docker, microservices world, we acquired a company called NGINX, and you guys are probably using NGINX every day and not aware of it. NGINX is, at first they were kind of like a competitor to us, but they were in a different segment of the market, more in the DevOps world, right? NGINX runs, when it first came out as a product, they have a free version, and now we also have a paid version. The free version, a lot of people were using it as their web application server, right? So you think of your Apache websites, pretty much over 450 million websites are now running on NGINX. Well, we took the same engine that we use for web application security and ported it over to NGINX, right? So right now, you're probably using NGINX technology every day. If you're using Netflix, Disney Plus, right, Walmart, those are all being run on NGINX, right? There's a lot of customers out there that use our product. So what we've done, we've taken the same engine, our web application firewall, ported it over to NGINX. Now we have the same security signatures, features that we have in our Big IP products, right? Now on NGINX. But if you look at the transition that people are going through right now, right? A lot of people are looking into cloud services, right? Either hosting their cloud applications in the cloud, or maybe using some of these services as a software as a service, right? SaaS service, a portal where you can go in and do things, right? One of the things we did at F5, we first started going into this area with our DDoS protection product, right? And then we acquired a couple companies. One of them was Shape Security, which focuses on bot mitigation, credential stuffing, right? There's still a big problem out there, right? We have a famous coffee shop vendor that a lot of people use, right? Where hackers were coming in, stealing people's rewards cards, putting them on the dark web, right? Even some famous burrito place there too, right? That people use. People were like going out, putting out coupons, they're stealing that. And that's all being done by bots, right? Every time you put an IP address, a public IP address on a device on the internet, within 5 minutes, bots are going to go in there, try to pretend, logins, try to pretend they're the user and do credential stuffing. So, with that acquisition, we with the Shape Security, it gave us another product in our portfolio to help mitigate those attacks. And then one of the key things we're doing too at F5, we acquired another company called Volterra that gave us the ability to do software as a service, right? SaaS services with our F5 products, right? But also gave us the ability to do multi-cloud platform, right? So now we have the ability to not only do web application security, load balancing, a lot of the core things we do with F5, but we can now do this across different cloud platforms. No matter if you're running your instances in AWS or Azure, or even if you have apps that you can't move to the cloud, still in your data center, we have the ability to actually install an agent on a VMware server or KVM server and connect back to our platform. So you want to go to the next slide?
Awesome.
So, when you go to the cloud, I know one of the challenges you guys probably see every day is how do I manage this, right? Typically, you see, you have to have the tools from Azure to go in and manage something, or go into AWS's console, right? But imagine if you're trying to do all the same security functions, right, for different cloud environments, right? You have to have some kind of way to do this centrally, right? And that's one of the biggest challenges that you see, right? The same policies you can create in AWS for their basic load balancer, right? It's not the same way you do this on Azure or GCP or even in your traditional data center, right? So they kind of makes the way to manage these apps very complicated for some of the users.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and if you go to the next slide.
Yeah, I think that's important. I saw a slide the other day where folks were pointing out how it was supposed to go, like 5-6 years ago. It was like, we got our on-prem stuff and we're gonna go to the cloud, but they were anticipating going to one cloud like Azure or AWS or GCP or SoftLayer or something. But before they knew it, they blinked their eyes, half a decade goes by and they've got stuffed microservices across multiple apps with every time they log in, it's a whole new experience. They're having to relearn and watch a video on where did that go? What was renamed? What's this new feature? And I think that what I've seen out of this thus far, without us really diving into it at this point, is that simplifies it. You have one stop shop, regardless of those clouds that are hosting and powering those solutions for you.
No, I agree. That's the hard part, right? You can't lift and shift the data center to the cloud because sometimes you have applications that can't even be moved, right? If you have absolutely can't do that. So yeah, and we have this, some of the things we talked about, right? Even automation is a challenge, right? Sometimes you can't script a lot of these things. One thing we could do with this new cloud environment from F5 is you can actually use tools like Ansible, right? Terraform to actually build these configs, quickly deploy this, right? And I know you might be working with, if you're a traditional network engineer or security engineer, you probably work with the DevOps people, and they do things differently, right? So this is where you can take advantage of F5's automation that's built into distributed cloud services to help you with that. And of course, that observability is a big thing, right? You want to see what's going on, where the traffic's going. So yeah, let's go over to the next slide. Let's take a look and key things that use cases, and we kind of talked a little bit about this. You guys probably have situations where you need to have those traditional applications still in your data center. So you're finding out that maybe running that app in AWS is too expensive compared to running it in Azure, right? But you want to keep some over in AWS, your data center Azure. So you got to have that connectivity. One of the key things, the use cases for F5 distributed cloud services is that giving you that hybrid model where you can run your apps anywhere, right? We can still secure them, optimize them, load balance them, and all that. And as I mentioned, web security is another key factor. Not only web, your traditional web application firewalls, but think of things like APIs, right? You're probably using APIs, key area of security, and you still have traditional DDoS problems out there, bots that are happening, right? And then as you're rebuilding your applications, right, modernizing them, people are looking for ways to run their applications in Kubernetes, right? And then they want to know how they can distribute that because some of these environments with Kubernetes, you might be just running them in your traditional data center, but you want to make sure your app's global, right? So this is one of the use cases we use this for. And of course, as I mentioned, bot protection, right? Fraud, account takeover. That just give you an idea. My mom, during the pandemic, she got she got unemployment benefits in Kentucky, but my mom's in Philadelphia. So tell me how that happened, right? They got her, right, and did that.
Not shocked.
Not a shock, right? Yeah, so if we go over to the next screen, and as I mentioned, what we did at F5, we took those core technologies that we still do traditionally with our hardware and NGINX, and we brought that out as this new platform, right? You see some of the key things here, networking, we still do things like load balancing, global load balancing. We also do DNS, right? F5 has always been doing DNS with our appliances, our hardware and virtual distance, but now we provide that as a service. Not only you can do regular DNS, but you can also, it comes with security layers for DDoS, cache poisoning, DOS mitigation is another thing, right? Especially during the pandemic, my school district got hit with a DOS attack, right? During finals week of all things, right? Some kid must have launched an app out there and started hitting our school district ISPs, right?
They used to pull the fire alarm when I was younger. Now they scale a bot war against the services at school.
Yeah, exactly. Kids are getting creative, right?
They are.
But yeah, app security, right? WAF, like we mentioned, bot defense and all these, and then computing, right? We can do all these functions, all these things that you can do it from one centralized location, have that visibility, and and also be able to secure and protect your apps, give you that resiliency too, right? Make sure your apps are available everywhere. But we look at the next slide, right? Go to the next slide, right? The way we can do this at F5 is when we built this distributed cloud platform, we built it as a global network, right? If you look at this, these dots are pretty much changing every day. These are what we call our regional data centers, where our backbone's at, right, for our distributed cloud services. Even though it says 20 terabits, we're actually up to 17 terabits of capacity now. Wow. So instead of let's say you're publishing an application for your company, right, web application. Traditionally, we put it in a data center and add it out, right, on your firewall, or if it's in AWS, we want to get it, we want to get your users to the closest to that. Traditionally, if you were in London, you have to get to your application in New York, you have to cross a pond, like they say, right? And you're looking at latency, right? But one of the things we do with distributed cloud, When you publish an app, we can send it to the nearest data center in our regional, right? Our regional edges that we have. So instead of, John coming from London, he can go to the, instead of going to the US, he can go to the nearest data center, right? And it follows the sun, right? What's cool about this, the same policies, the same app could be now visible from anywhere. And you can control this too, by the way. If you want to, if you want to do geo-fencing or geo-blocking for certain apps, we could do that too. But the key thing here is increasing performance, right? Reducing that latency it takes to get to your application, right? And again, if there's certain attacks like DDoS, we have the capacity to handle those type of attacks.
Awesome.
And this is just
look at it.
so data center. But one thing I wanted to add too, right? Even though we have these regional data centers around the world, if you need to publish an app in your traditional data center, we can actually download what's called a CE, a customer edge agent, put it on a VMware box or a KVM. When you do that, creates a token and automatically connects to the two nearest data centers, right, in our region. So now we're giving you the ability to, have access to your app. It could be that front door. The F5 distributed cloud will be that front door. We can do the posture checking with, WAF policies and all that. Then we can connect to your private IP, your data center. You don't have to create any firewall rules, right? Once we deploy that CE, now we can give you the ability to publish your apps, externally, right? If you make it easy for you to consume your apps from anywhere. All right. And then, one thing I want to bring out, if people ask you, how big is that global network? Look, we're actually one of the top 10, if you look at the numbers for BGP, right? You probably using Cogent or Level 3 as one of those peering BGP providers, we're one of the top ones in the world. So,
Excellent.
Makes sense. Gives you the ability to, peer with us easily if you need to do any routing.
Now, was this whole network all these pops? Was that brought over by the Volterra acquisition?
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, exactly. When we acquired Volterra, they had just acquired the Twitch video game network, right, from Amazon. Since Amazon bought Twitch, right? I guess my kids use that to record their videos, right? If they're playing video games, right? A lot of bandwidth, big network.
Yeah.
So when that happened, right, Amazon didn't need the Twitch network because they already had their backbone. So that gave us the ability to have a global backbone by acquiring Volterra, which became the platform for distributed cloud services.
Awesome. Seems like a win-win in that regard. You didn't have to build it from scratch, but also it's not the secret sauce either.
Exactly. And every month we're adding new pops. So you're starting to see more locations. It's going to grow more.
Beautiful.
And then, this is what I was kind of mentioning earlier, with the multi-cloud feature of it. If you look at, the admin user up there, right, from one central location, we can link these together, right? If you're in that data center project that you're planning to move things to the cloud or want to run the hybrid mode, if you click on the arrow keys on these, you'll see how, we could start off, have customers that start off, maybe they have a public facing website. They just want to, protect it, but we can also incorporate that data center, right? The headquarters, private cloud, right? Or anything they have, right? Even if they're using public clouds like AWS, we can stitch this all together with our site connectors that we call in distributed cloud services. And we can do everything from one location. And you'll get to see a little example of this in our next demo. So go ahead and let's go to the next page. And again, one thing that you can do with this platform, it's role-based, right? If you're working with your SecOps teams, your DevOps teams, you can delegate roles. You can give people admin access, read-only access, whatever access they want to see their apps, right? And the content. Again, it makes it easier for them to see that more simple location than going to all these different tools to do that, right? Just think of it, if you're got to do a VPN tunnel from, for example, from AWS to Azure, you got to do a lot of settings to get that working, right? So maybe have a firewall in between that to do that, right? We can do it all from.
Oh, yeah.
Cool. So yeah, so what we're going to do is do a quick demo, of an example, website we're publishing. I'm going to go ahead and take over the screen here. And Windows here.
Okay. We see it?
Do you see my screen?
Yes, sir.
All right, so let me bring up the console here. All right, here we go. Okay, so I have again, when you first sign up for distributed cloud services, right, you'll get your own namespace or what we call tenant. right? When you first log in, this shows you what services you have access to, right? And one thing I do like about this platform is if you need help, right, documentation, it's built in right into the platform, right? So if I go here to documentation, say if I'm deploying a customer edge agent into a data center, right? I can go here, they have videos on how to do this, right? All platforms. If I'm doing like a data center, it even has how to download, links to download the OBA, how to step through it, how to do it on KVM, which is very beneficial, right? But again, even though this is simple, we also definitely, we have our XenTegra engineers like Chris that can help you, with deploying this in your environment. So when you look at the distributed cloud services, the centralized console, you have these panels, right? These panels kind of represent some of the things you can do. You do see certain things, and I'm in a channel partner demo site. You can see some new stuff that's coming out. But the key ones we mostly work with are web application firewall, protection, multi-cloud app connect. This is where we do our load balancing, right? And then this is multi-cloud network connect. This is where we do our connections to some of the environments. So for example, I'll start off with a demo here. My login timed out. Go ahead, re-log in. Also, on these logins, you can also tie this to a directory service. So if you're using Azure AD, right, you can actually use that for your authentication or some of the other vendors, Okta and so on. So let me just re-log in here. Or you can create local user accounts and of course enable MFA, whatever you want to get to this console. All right, so here, all right, I'm logging into that console. So I'll just go back here. I'm going into App Connect, right? Load balancer. Think of this like your traditional F5 load balancer. We used to call it local traffic manager, or if you're using Citrix, they have their own, load balancing server groups and all that, right? Servers and all that. So here I'm going into my console. Right away, you get, clear visibility of what's happening, right, with your applications. I have this demo app here, right, that I created. So if I go here to HTTP load balancers, I created a virtual server or VIP, right? And the way it works, it's pretty straightforward. Like I'm going to go here and just walk you through the config here, right? When you configure this apps, in this particular example, I'm using a public facing website. But what we do first is you create a DNS entry from your F5 here. You can delegate the F5 to be your DNS server for your company. So here we're creating a VIP. Think of it like a virtual IP. In this case, we're using a DNS name. I'm going to have the F5 when the users connect to this website, HTTPS. I'm going to be listening for HTTPS traffic. So I'm handling on distributed cloud services, the F5 service is doing the SSL cert. In this example, we're doing automatic cert. What that means is basically we're doing let's encrypt, right? Free SSL. If you want to use your own SSL search, you can still upload your traditional SSL search that you buy. So I'm going to be doing an HTTP redirect. And I'm listening on port 443. You notice here I have like TLS security set to high. What that means is, when you do your quality reports, right, your audits, we're going to guarantee you get that A rating, right? Because we're disabling some of the old ciphers and all that. So we're doing a DNS entry. We're going to be listening to this, and then we're going to tie this to a pool, right? A server that we're load balancing or an application that we're getting to. What's cool about this platform, like as I mentioned earlier, in this particular example, right? The pool member I'm using, right? It's a public facing website, and here's a port that I'm using. But if I click here, you can do other things, right? You can have this be a public IP, or it could be an IP address of an origin site. So what does that mean? It could be a private IP address, right? Once I have these site connectors in place, like I mentioned earlier, to AWS or my data center, now I can go right directly to the private IP of that site. So if I have my web applications running on that server segment, right, I could just point to the private IPs once, and then I'd be able to load balance to that. Or if I'm hosting Kubernetes instances on this platform, I can do that here too. So it's the flexibility we have is pretty cool, right? So you might say, Orlando, but if I point to a public IP, somebody could bypass this F5 and go right to the public IP. True, but how you mitigate that is when you do a public IP, you can set up a firewall rule with a list of our IP ranges from F5, distributed cloud services, right? So we create a firewall that says, allow only these ranges of IPs from F5 to go to your public website, right? So now that forces the traffic to come through us, right? Forces it to come through our global network. So it's pretty cool. So in this example, I'm just, pointing to a public website that we're using. as our pool member, right? I have the ability to do traditional things with F5, right? We could do load balancing methods, health checking. We can create health monitors that go out and check to see, if the site's up and running, right? And we can add more pool members here, make it a global load balancing pool member group, right? Kind of like your server groups in the NetScaler world, right? So, and we can also weight things, right? We can give it like a priority weight, meaning how many connections, or this is go here to this server first, then go to the other ones because this one can hold more traffic, right? So I created this pool, right? Going back to the main screen, virtual server, listening, pool members. And then here is where we do our security, right? From here, we can actually create a web application firewall policy, right? I created one here that is set to blocking mode. You can set it to monitoring mode if you want. But this is taking into account the top signatures at F5. This is what distinguishes us from other vendors, right? We have a global network, and we also have our security operations data centers in Seattle and also in Europe and in Asia. So we're constantly getting all these threat feeds, right? So if there's a new attack around the world, we create a signature for that. We send it to our devices, the same signatures that are used by our traditional F5 web application firewall or an NGINX. Those signatures are updated here. So just an example, Log4Me, when that first came out, companies were rushing to get a fix for this. We already had those signatures in place and we just pushed them out. And you can set levels, right? High, medium, low, but you can also customize these settings, right? You can customize these WAF settings. So I have a WAF policy here, and that kind of covers things like OWASP top 10, like SQL injections, cross-site scripting, but it adds those signatures, what's called threat campaigns. We're talking about over 7,000 signatures. So you might come back and say, well, Orlando, I'm using AWS WAF, right? But that's good, but that only has 300, right? Basic stuff. And AWS WAF will tell you ours is basic, go with another vendor, and then we partner with them. That's why a lot of our customers, use our platform for this. We also have things for bot protection, as we mentioned earlier. API security, that's another thing. We have the ability to do API discovery, protection of your APIs, and then of course DOS protection. So in this demo, I'm just doing a WAF policy. So I built this virtual server. Once I build it, right, it's going to go out. It's going to create my link on the internet, right? So if I go here, open up a web page, a tab here, right? Here goes my public facing website. So I'm hitting that DNS entry, sending me over back to us, and I'm using my domain that I own. So sending me over here, and I can see the web page. So if I go back to the console, right, and if I go here to applications, remember that centralized visibility, right? I can go here, and I can see, my requests coming in, right? So I just came in on this website, right? And if you notice here, it says Dallas. That's because it's going to the nearest regional center for F5. If we looked at that map before, Dallas is one of them, right? And look at the IP address, right? If I go what is my IP, right? You see my IP address is 104, right? So you see here, not trying to do smoke and mirrors here, but there goes my IP address right there, right? So you saw my request that came into the site, connected to the web page, right? So I'm going to do something a little different, right? Because we talked about security, right? Key thing here is security. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to do just a basic cross-site script attack, right? So I'm going to do some garbage like that, right? So this could be a SQL injection. In this case, this is cross-site script, right? I put that entry in and you notice immediately I got a reject, right? Oops, I got a reject message, right? And it shows you a support ID. This is exactly the same type of message you get from our traditional F5 WAF, right? You can actually customize this too, right? This is just a standard default message, right? So if I go back to my web application firewall, right? I'm going to go over here and go into the WAF and API protection. And I'm going to take a look and see what's going on with that, right? So I'm going to go in here into under security, right? If I go to my application, right? So if I go security analytics, right, now let me make sure I'm in that space. Let me refresh, right? So if I go to requests, I see immediately something's being triggered here, right? What did it see, right? So if you go here, if I go to the request, let me just refresh here, make sure I see the data there, right? And then I'm just going to do another request here. Sometimes the logs take a little bit of time for it to update, right? So let me refresh here. Okay, So you see some of the logs here. So if I go to security analytics, let's see if it comes up now. And since it's request. All right. So, right. So you see here information. Here goes that, that signature we saw.
Yeah.
Where I'm, right. What type of, it should show me what type of request came in, right? Also, it would show you location. So if I go here, oh, sorry, okay, and you can see here in the graph, it just showed right here, right? The attack was coming in, WAF, right? It sees the top source of attack is my computer, right? And if I should see now, if I click in here, requests, right? You should start seeing, some of those requests that came in, right? The cross-site scripting, CS, some of the things we did on the cross-site scripting. And then you can see other things, right? Like on the dashboard, we had API security enabled for this. You would see API, DDoS attacks, right? Your alerts here. So, even though we're doing this basic demo, you can see these requests come in, right? Now, if we go back to our load balancing, right? I wanted to show you too, how we're connected, right? How is my app being published, right? So if I go here to my application, right, I can look at your performance. Now I have the ability to look, and see how many requests are coming into my application, right? Latency, we talked about latency, right? We want to make sure. Remember we talked about SSL scoring. Look at this. You can see our SSL, we're using the highest encryption for SSL traffic.
Yeah, you sure are. I mean, that was like click done. And some other vendors' platforms, that's about an hour worth of just configuration alone.
Exactly. How about origins? Remember I told you when we first published our app?
Yeah.
Right now, I have it at default. It took it to publish my website everywhere. See Singapore, Amsterdam, Dallas is one of them, right? Paris, so everywhere in the world, Lisbon, Portugal. So you can automatically, if you have users coming from those locations, you're not going to have any problems, getting their application up and running quickly, right? Because we're going to send them to the nearest data center at F5.
So that was like laying GSLB on in a couple of clicks, and then just waiting under a minute, you deployed that globally.
Correct.
That's amazing. Absolutely amazing.
And I know in our conference at Christmas, they kind of mentioned ridiculously easy, but it is easy, but it's good. You still have to have some of the odds. If we do this on a traditional F5, we have to do a lot of steps to do some devices, but here it makes it easier for us.
Yeah, wow. I mean, that was a lot of consulting time.
Yeah.
For sure.
So again, like, as I mentioned, we do have this available. We, Chris has access to some of these demo environments too, if you guys want to deep dive and look at some of the stuff. But there's other modules, right? We do other things like bot defense, right? NGINX, like I mentioned earlier, we own NGINX. We have a SaaS-based console coming out for that. But we're adding more things, right? Every month, there's new things coming out. We're coming out with our F5 access, big IP APM, observability, which is pretty cool. Lets you monitor traffic from, you can pretend to be a user coming from AWS or from our regional centers to see how the latency is, those apps. So that's something we could talk, look at another day, but I'll stop my demo here. I'll stop sharing. So I'll hand it over back to Chris.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that. That was awesome. Let's see where share mine back out again. All right, so we got a couple more slides to kind of click through, but wanted to kind of recap with the takeaway here is really this distributed cloud platform, and Orlando kind of shared this with me recently, that, I mean, there's a couple main pillars here that we want to look at, and the web application and API protection kind of plays into these four sub pillars here with the API security, bot defense, the web app firewall, and the DDoS mitigation. So I think we just kind of saw an example with Orlando clicking through that he's able to globally offer his application across multiple front ends on the F5 distributed cloud platform. And within a couple clicks, he's applied the security that he needs to, get those A ratings and meet those compliancy factors that are lingering over any of these applications that we're presenting publicly.
All right, if you want to share your screen. And I see a couple people are on the panel list. That's good. Thanks for joining.
Yeah, sorry about that. I don't know why I didn't. I'll back up one more. All right, did it pop up? Okay, very good. So yeah, the F5 application security as a service, that is basically what the distributed cloud is kind of offering us here. So as a recap, those 4 pillars that we kind of wanted to look at under the web application and API security, we're kind of demoed to you there within a few clicks of Orlando, just whipping up his homegrown lab and then sending it all over the world, front-ended by F5 on the distributed cloud platform. Checking out those security compliance and checks to hit those ratings that I know everybody's managers are kind of gunning for. That was impressive. I mean, we're just kind of shooting the breeze, and before you know it, you've got it deployed all over the globe, meeting all the security requirements that would be mandated.
Yeah, especially like those HIPAA or PCI compliance, right? Make that easier for you. Get those quality reports running good. Right.
Oh yeah, the caption. I visit that site often. All right, so centralized control and flexible deployments. Again, it's kind of the take it home stuff that we looked at previously. So like you pointed out, Orlando, the Terraform piece, GitLab, any of the microservices and containerized deployment options that we have out there for the multiple teams, like your app development, DevOps, NetOps, security guys. They're all touching this to some regard, but they've all got different goals. So I think that was really kind of pointing out that we're able to touch on all those and keep that centralized control plane in place, regardless of which cloud it's on, private or public.
Yeah.
Or hybrid.
And I forgot to show this, but like especially with the automation, right? Everything I just did in the GUI, and if you don't mind, I'll just share real fast. Everything I did on the GUI, all those configurations, right? Share screen. For example, if I go back into that App Connect, right? And I like to show this because I remember I did a workshop once for a partner and they had their customer there. And the one guy was like, he was into DevOps. And he was like, oh, and I was like, look, if you click on here, everything we just spoke about, right? It's right there, scripted. You can build a script using Ansible, right? If you're doing YAML for Ansible, all those scripts. So you can automate. The same thing I'm doing on the screen clicks, you can automate it with the script. And there's pretty much code right there. You can use that, reuse it, change it, redeploy it. Makes it easier for you. All right, I'll hand it back over to you.
Yeah, that was easy enough. All right, there we go. As we kind of pointed out there and recapping, centralized control and flexible deployments again. Click over to the next slide. API security piece. I wanted to kind of was the takeaway here. I wanted to do a recap real quickly on those 4 main pillars. So we'll start out with the API security here. Discovering, monitoring, and securing those components. Again, with that dashboard that Orlando was showing off to us here, you get all that visibility, the analytics, so you can make those proper decisions on the fly in real time. The bot defense component here, it's there. It's basically built in. These bots are crazy. So that customers hit us up before. They're like, "Oh, our infrastructure's slow. Can you take a look at some of the stuff?" And it turned out, we turned on bot detection and defense on the edge, and they had 500 plus bots sitting outside of their gateway just pinging away at it all day long. So it isn't always where we used to go looking and running to put the fire out immediately anymore. So
Yeah,
really kind of.
I even had a friend of mine call me yesterday because their website they had like over 700 requests per minute trying to log in as users. So I kind of pointed him on this. So,
Those aren't real users. Not real. The web application firewall, as Orlando pointed out, is over 700 plus signatures, homegrown too, which I did not know that. You guys take care of that in-house, so that's pretty important.
yeah, 7,000. And
Oh, 7,000, sorry.
probably more than 7,000 now. So yeah, any new type of attacks, everything from any platform, they have it there. So it's pretty cool.
And this was one that you were kind of pointing out to me that I thought was kind of neat. So point out what's wrong with this picture. Human traffic versus non-human traffic. Everybody wishes it was flip-flopped, but it's not.
Yeah, and this is a very, what's interesting about this slide, right? This is actual from a customer, their logs, right? And it was funny that we had a previous slide that just shows everything in, like yellow, and we're asking, what do you see wrong? But you can immediately see what's wrong, right? If you look at the legend key here, everything in green is a human, right? Normal user. But look at the weekends. All these bots, they're hard. You might think there's people working hard over the weekend. No, it's just bots, man. Bots work. They don't rest, right? So
They're trying to get you to have to work over the weekend. That's what they're doing.
Exactly. You're right. Exactly. So, stop this. You don't have to worry about, attacks coming over the weekend. But again, this is the visibility we have, right? With our bot defense, we identify, right, what it is. And people might think, oh, well, I'm using CAPTCHA. CAPTCHA's not good. I mean, you can defeat CAPTCHA these days. Matter of fact, I saw on one of our presentations, one of our global solutions architect showed us a picture of like somewhere in Asia where these people were in a room, they had tablets and they were clicking on, pretending to be the user to defeat CAPTCHA, right? And
Oh, wow.
But we have things built in where we can see mouse clips. If it's a bot, we can see that, if it's moving like this, a normal user is moving your mouse around. If it's going linear, it's not a human, right? So we can actually identify if it's a human or if it's not the right user, but coming from countries, a lot of things we use, geolocation, all that to help us identify. It's pretty cool.
Right on. To kind of wrap up here, an analogy I've used a few times in the past, but I think it's still pretty prevalent today. It's like you see all this red up here on the screen and you're like, well, I got a firewall on my edge. Why do I need more? Why do I have to take it to the next level? And it's like, you might, I kind of look at it as you might have your property with your house on it and you have a fence around the front and backyard, and you might have gates at the driveway. And those gates are kind of like your firewall. But if you got people outside beating it down, they're eventually going to break it down. You take it to the next level, maybe you're in a community where the community itself has gates around it as well. And that's where like everything in red here would be blocked at that community gate and not necessarily at the edge of your driveway. So I think that's a pretty important kind of thing to think about there, that, we got to stop that traffic and disregard it when it's out there in the wild before it comes to the edge of your property.
Yeah.
So here we got a few of the key takeaways here. Ubiquitous security, SaaS, and automation are central to our customers' future needs. So as a result, F5 evolving always, like Orlando's pointing out, adding POPs left and right all over the globe. So really leaning towards becoming that multi-cloud application security and delivery company. And in the future, as of right now, you guys are securing this, delivering it, and optimizing those applications in the APIs anywhere. And you just kind of prove that. You took your home lab and front-ended it across the globe in just a matter of moments. So the future role unlocks a high growth opportunity for F5, and it's super exciting for business transformation. So just the speed, again, I can't state it enough, the speed to deploy that application in the means that Orlando did during the demo here. They used to take you, it was a chunk, it was a couple of days worth of stuff. We might set it up in the beginning, monitor it, look at it for a while, and then come back, a week later after somebody's kicked the tires on the web application presentation, ensuring that everything's kind of working right. Orlando was able to do that in under a minute. So kind of rounding things out here, be sure to check out our next webinar that Orlando and I are doing in June. This will be the multi-cloud component that we're focusing in a little tighter on, hopping between the clouds here and tying everything back together. And also you can check out XenTegra.com/events to see all the other webinars that we have happening in the near future, or any of the in-person events as well.
Yeah.
F5 Academy, you guys have got a pretty stout list of in-person events across the country right now.
Yeah, we actually we have one coming up in May. But yeah, go to this event site. There's a couple, like I was just in Austin yesterday. We did one in Austin, but we're coming around the country doing some labs and get some hands-on with this product.
Yeah, but I can say I did it last fall myself personally. I enjoyed it very much, and I took away a lot from it. And now we have our own tenant at XenTegra, so I need to whip up my lab again so I can get my big IP virtual editions kind of wrapped up in there. Start working with it a little bit tighter, but that'll give everybody at XenTegra our own ability to co-manage and look at it together. So the different team members that we have in this area will be able to take advantage of that. So can't wait to see how that all kind of wraps up and looks as we kind of start adding the nodes to the platform. So definitely reach out to anyone on this webinar to find out anything else. Here's a link also for the conferences that we were mentioning in the beginning. Sorry that kind of flip-flopped as far as the transition, but check it out. I mean, everything from ServiceNow to Microsoft Ignite, you know, everything, because this is the ecosystem. So we love participating in all of them because it takes everything working harmoniously together for it to be super successful and give the users what they demand. So check out those conferences, what's coming up. And again, reach out to any one of us on the webinar or your client executive at XenTegra. We'll be more than happy to schedule a meeting with you, take a little bit deeper diver look at the options that you have available to you. And we appreciate everybody joining today.
All right.
Thanks for hosting with me, Orlando. Good to see you as always, and look forward to the next one.
All right. Thank you. Actually, I don't know if they had some questions. Maybe we could let them talk. Joe or Maurice, you guys had any questions?
Yeah, please.
Okay.
All right, cool.
All right. Thanks for joining, Joe.
Yeah, thank you. Take care. We'll see you soon.